We're ready to begin.
Great. Thank you very much. Clerk, can you please call roll and establish a quorum?
Yes, I can. Member Davis,
Present.
Member Turner,
Present.
Member Schiff,
Present.
Member Roden,
Present.
and Member Suarez.
Present.
And you have a quorum.
All right. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk.
Welcome.
So in compliance with the directives of the county, state, and Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, this meeting is being live streamed and closed to in-person public participation. Temporary procedures are subject to change pursuant to guidelines related to social distancing and minimizing person-to-person contact. If you would like to make a verbal comment at today's meeting, please dial 916-875-2500 and follow the prompts to be placed in queue for a specific agenda item or off-agenda matter. When I open public comment for a specific item or off-agenda matter, you will be transferred from the queue into the meeting to make a verbal comment. In addition, written comments are always accepted. You can send your email comment to boardclerk@saccounty.net. Those are board clerk, all one word, saccounty.net. Your comment will be routed to the board and filed in the record. In addition, I also want to thank everyone as they're making their comments to please speak directly into a handset or headset. Mute your devices when not speaking to minimize background noise. Please announce your name when speaking on an agenda item so all the participants and listeners are aware who has the floor. In addition, when I make a call for a motion in a second to the members of the board, please announce your name prior to making a motion or the second. And the clerk will take a voice vote and confirm the results of the vote. Now, I want to welcome you all to tonight's meeting virtually. The CPAC members, we of us who serve, are volunteer citizens appointed by the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors. The councils are advisory only to county agencies. The purpose of our CPAC is to encourage citizen participation in the planning process, provide local forums to develop and propose community goals and objects, and to serve as a local sounding board for new proposals offered by county staff and others to assist the county planning agencies and the Board of Supervisors in carrying out the approved community plans and county's general plans. Our meetings are always open to the public and are listed in the local neighborhood newspapers, posted at libraries and meeting sites. Courtesy notices are mailed to the property owners within 500 feet of the project based on the address on record and posted to the county's website. And as our outgoing chair, Brenda, was always fond of saying, we are your friends, we are your neighbors, we are your community. So we ask that you please be respectful of ourselves and each other. And so, Madam Clerk, if you will please call the first item.
Yes. Item 1 is going to be Arden at Marxton Starbucks, located at 2345 Arden Way in the Arden Arcade community. Request for a conditional use permit and design review.
Good evening, members of the CPAC. This is David Ulrey, the project planner for the Arden at Marxton Starbucks project. Next slide, please. It's located at the northeastern corner of the intersection of Marxton Road and Arden Way, and the request is a conditional use permit for a drive-through with automated sound within 300 feet of a residential zoning district, as well as a design review. Next slide, please. So existing conditions, the site is currently developed with an 8,280 square foot vacant commercial building constructed in 1974. This, if you're familiar, was the Aaron Brothers location, former Aaron Brothers location. So next slide, please. Here we have the site plan and landscape plan. It is important to note that they've made the outdoor seating area prominent and visible from Arden to make sure that visibility is increased there. Originally, it was kind of towards the back behind the building, so that's been brought forward. Next slide, please. Here we have the 3D perspectives. Next slide, please. As well as the south and the west elevations. Good. And here we have the north and the east elevations. Slide. Here are the proposed colors and materials. Next slide. And so the project's consistent with noise standards outlined in the general plan. It meets all zoning code development standards. And it was reviewed by the Design Review Advisory Committee on January 28th with a 3-yes vote. And the final approval body is the zoning administrator. Next slide, please. And that concludes my presentation. I'll turn it over to the CPAC for discussion. I'm happy to answer any questions. The applicant team is also in attendance.
Great, thank you. If I can ask, do any members of the CPAC have questions for the presenter? Hearing none, I will ask, would the applicant himself or herself like to briefly present on their item? Okay, take that as a no. Clerk, do we have any public comments on this item?
We do not have any verbal public comment on the item.
Okay, I do see we have one written comment.
Yes.
There's one written comment in support of the project. Okay. Seeing as there is no other questions and no oppositions, the chair would entertain a motion at this time.
I will move, Tom here, I will move to approve the agenda item.
Brenda Davis, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, I can. Member Davis?
Yes.
Member Turner?
Yes.
Member Schiff?
Yes.
Member Roden?
Yes.
Member Suarez?
Aye.
And your motion carries.
All right, thank you to the applicants for presenting. Madam Chair, will you please call the second item on the agenda?
Yes, item number 2 is going to be Mosaic Law Congregation and Siloam School Use Permit Amendment, located at 2300 Sierra Boulevard in the Arden Arcade community. Request for a use permit amendment and design review.
Good evening, CPAC members. This is Jessie Shen. I am the lead planner for this project, and I'll be providing a brief presentation. Next slide. Before we start, a reminder that project materials are available for public viewing at Planning Project Viewer, and the easiest way to access project materials is to use the control number for the project. Next slide. The project site is located at 2300 Sierra Boulevard in the Arden Arcade community and consists of 9.6 acres in the RD20 zoning district. The project site is developed with structures and site improvements associated with the existing church, Mosaic Law Congregation, and private school, Shalom School. These existing uses are allowed to hold congregational and school-related events on the project site, such as religious services, school plays, basketball games, etc. Next slide. The request is for a use permit amendment to allow non-congregational event center use, incidental to the existing primary uses on the project site. Examples of non-congregational events would be graduations, dances for other schools, fundraising events or for other organizations, and weddings for non-congregational members. Next slide, please. So a bit of history on the project site and how this current entitlement came about. In July 1964, a use permit was granted to allow the existing church facility on the project site. In January 2005, the Planning Commission approved a use permit to allow the expansion of the existing church through the construction of new structures and remodeling of existing structures, a use permit to allow a pre-K through 8th grade private school, a special review of parking to allow the reduction in required parking spaces from 330 required to 281 proposed. As part of this entitlement, the Planning Commission denied the deviations requested for reduced parking lot, landscaping, island widths, and shade trees. And the site plan depicted on this slide is the approved site plan for this entitlement that I'm briefing you on. And that site is consistent with how the site plan is developed currently. In September 2009, construction was completed for the structure identified as the multipurpose room. This is circled in red on the project site plan shown. The structure is the proposed location for holding non-congregational events on the site. It has a capacity of 860 persons in theater seating and 440 persons in table seating, like banquet style. There are 265 parking spaces provided on the project site. Note that this number is less than the 281 spaces approved with the special review of parking, and the decrease is due to the denial of the deviation requested for the landscape, planter width reduction, and shade trees. In September 2019, the Per zoning administrator granted a temporary use permit allowing 10 non-congregational events on the project site between September 2019 and April 2020. The temporary use permit for non-congregational events is limited to 10 events within a calendar year. As such, this current use permit amendment is requested to allow for more events than permitted by a temporary use permit. So with this entitlement, the applicant is proposing to limit the number of non-congregational events on the project site to 70 per calendar year and capping the capacity to 400 persons per event. Next slide, please. With the holding of prior non-congregational events on the project site, issues such as noise and traffic have been raised by surrounding neighbors. The applicant team can speak to their efforts regarding outreach and ongoing dialogue with the neighbors. With respect to noise, the applicant team is putting forth that no outdoor non-congregational events with amplified music or loudspeakers are allowed on the property. All amplified sound must be done indoors with door monitors at the entries to ensure the doors remain closed during the event. In regards to traffic and parking concerns, parking monitors would be present for each event and directing attendees to parking locations on site. When on-site parking is filled, the protocol is to direct attendees to the Unitarian Universalist Church parking lot approximately 1,000 feet east of the project site, and that is shown in the yellow dash line, and the project site is shown in the red square. A shuttle would operate between the Unitarian Universalist Church parking lot and the center to transport attendees between locations. Next slide, please. So to reiterate a few key points, the applicant is requesting a use permit amendment to allow incidental non-congregational events on the project site. They are proposing to limit the number of attendees as well as the number of events per year. To accommodate additional parking demand associated with the non-congregational events, they've contracted with the church 1,000 feet down for 166 additional spaces, and a shuttle service would be provided and parking monitors would be utilized for every event. There has been ongoing dialogue between the applicant and concerned neighbors since fall of 2019. We have also received several letters of support for the project, and we have received from a few neighbors revised proposed conditions which they have requested to be considered as part of this project. These conditions, which were received last Friday, have been distributed to the CPAC members at the request of the neighbors and to the applicant team as well. There's no new construction proposed with this entitlement request. It's proposing to use existing facilities on site, and the final hearing body for this project would be to the Planning Commission, and no date is set yet. That concludes my presentation. Staff is available to answer any questions, and the applicant team has also prepared a brief presentation and can answer questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we move to the applicant, members of the CPAC, do you have any questions for Sacramento County staff? Okay, hearing none. If the applicant would please like to present now.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the council. Brian Holloway here with Holloway Land Company, representing Mosaic Law Congregation. I have on the phone with me to answer any particular questions you may have about the operation is the congregation president, Judy Weiner, and board member, Barry Weiner. First of all, I'd like to thank our planner, Ms. Shen, for her hard work and also for basically giving a very complete presentation to you today. One of the things that Jesse mentioned at the end is that we had worked over the last year with a committee of neighbors, and that committee is chaired by Judy Goldbar, who is on the call today by telephone. So I know she wants to speak, and after me, you might want to bring her on to present the neighborhood committee's perspective here. But basically, the committee worked well with us. I want to thank them for their hard work and the time that they gave us, especially during COVID. One of the things that we were able to do before COVID shut everything down for all of us was we were operating under a temporary use permit with the county of Sacramento in the springtime or the fall and spring. And what we were able to do is completely revamp the operations of the center as it related to how events happened, and most importantly, the parking and the traffic management. We were able to implement the idea of the satellite lot with the shuttle. We were able to implement the parking monitors at the entrances to each of the 3 lots, and also the monitors that operated not only within the lot, telling people exactly where to park, but also coordinating the shuttles when we did have to use the Universalist Church parking lot down the street. So it was a great opportunity for us to show a system that did work. I think the neighbors found that it worked well, and it was based upon that test that we were able to work out these conditions of approval for the most part that you have before you tonight. So I think unless you have any specific questions of me, what I'd like to do is have you to bring on Judy Goldbar representing the neighborhood committee. Any questions on my answer?
This is Darrell, the clerk of the board. Did Judy call in to make the public comment? Did she call the public comment line?
Yes, she's on the public comment line. She couldn't get into the Blue Jeans system,
Perfect.
So I had her call in.
Okay, so when chairperson lets me know that he's ready for public comment, we will have the callers for public comment come through. Okay?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Holloway. Is anyone else from the presenters interested in speaking? If not,
No, they're just there to answer questions on any details.
okay.
Thank you. I will go mute.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Holloway. In the interest of letting the public comment before I go back to the CPAC board for questions, if clerk, you could open the public comment line now.
Yes, I can. We currently have 5 callers on the line. Can you please send the first caller?
Hi, caller. You have 3 minutes.
Hi. Hello? Hello?
Hi, caller. Yes, you have 3 minutes. Please make your public comment.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, you're in the meeting now. Please make your public comment. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. My name is Patrick Whalen. I'm a resident on Sierra Boulevard. I'm about a quarter mile from the Mosaic Law School. Thank you, council members, for your volunteer service. It's much appreciated. And thank you to the Mosaic Law School. They are generally very good neighbors. I very much appreciate them. There was an incident, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago where there was a concert at the Mosaic Law School, and I can't remember if it was the evil rock and roll or it was the evil rap music. I don't recall, but it resulted in a bunch of young folks driving, parking where they shouldn't be. They were intoxicated. They were leaving the concert drunk. They were throwing bottles and so forth, alcohol bottles around. And so I heard the staff person, the planner, give examples of the types of non-congregational events, basketball games, weddings, etc. And so I guess there's a series of questions that arise from that. I don't know if it's appropriate or who to answer, but what is the recourse for the neighbors if the event deviates from the listed examples, or if, for example, the doors are left open, the sound is too loud, or if attendees at the event don't use the shuttle service and instead park on the streets, or in other words, don't comply with the rules. I understand it's hard to make everybody 100% compliant, and to a certain extent we're just talking about bad apples, but just wondering what efforts are in place to allow the neighbors some recourse if the guide rails around this proposal are not followed by the event attendees. Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Please send the next caller.
Hi, caller.
Hello.
Hi, caller. You have 3 minutes.
Oh, okay. Speak now?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, my name is Pat Hara, and I've lived on Blackmer Circle for 50 years. I'm located about a block and a half north of Mosaic Law. This has historically been a lovely, quiet neighborhood, and this COVID year has allowed it to return again to that beautiful, serene state. No wild raves at Mosaic Law's self-described event center. No packed parking on our streets with associated discarded garbage such as broken bottles, cans, food wrappers, and used condoms. No need for me to scour the neighborhood at 5:30 a.m. the following day to pick up the trash that was left behind. All of these things had become part of our normal the past few years before COVID because of the uncontrolled events at Mosaic Law. I'm here to support our proposed condition to limit the number of non-congregational events on Mosaic Law property to a maximum of 2 per month. Neighborhood traffic has already increased by the daily drop-off and pickup of students at Shalom School 5 days a week, in addition to the religious congregational services at least once a week, plus other congregational events, school events, and high holy days. All of this traffic is allowed by Mosaic Law's current use permit. Mosaic Law is now proposing 70 non-congregational events per year, which is more than once a week. The State Board of Equalization has declared that occasional use of a property for fundraising means use of the property on an irregular or intermittent basis. And more than once a week would certainly not qualify, regardless of how many organizations were involved. Our neighborhood view is that the sheer increase in traffic and noise that would occur from 70 events per year would again overwhelm our neighborhood. If there was a recent traffic study measuring traffic in this last COVID year, it is not a representative sampling of traffic under normal circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Clerk, if you could call the next speaker.
Yes. Please send the next caller.
Hi, caller, you have 3 minutes.
Hello?
Hello, you have 3 minutes. Please begin with your comments.
Okay. Hello, my name is Cesar Peralta, and I live on northern portion of Blackmore Circle. I am a retired teacher from Los Angeles who has educated California students for 37 years and relocated to Sacramento seeking a quiet neighborhood. When Mosaic Law began its large non-congregational event, we were subjected to loud people roaming our streets past 2 a.m., discarding rubbish on the street and our properties. I'm here to support our proposed conditions limiting event hours, noise, and attendance for any amendment that would allow Mosaic Law to hold non-congregational events under the following conditions. For one, conclusions of events on Friday or Saturday at 11 p.m. and Sunday through Thursday at 10 p.m. with an additional 1.5 hours for cleanup. Number two, on-site monitoring personnel requirement. Number three, 10 p.m. curfew for outdoor events as required by county ordinance. Number four, prohibition of outdoor amplified music or loudspeaker. Number five, constant door monitoring to ensure doors remain closed during indoor events with amplified music. Number six, 400 attendee limit at any event. Number seven, the requirement that all advertising on-site signage, event contractors, parking attendants, and direct event attendees to park only on Mosaic Law grounds or as needed on Unitarian Church grounds. All conditions just stated are based on those for the Unitarian Church. These conditions are reasonable considering that this is zoned as a residential area. How would you feel if these events had happened in your neighborhood? Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Please send the next caller.
In your neighborhood. Thank you.
Hi, caller, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Please send the next caller.
And please,
My name is Kenneth Carlos. I'd like to speak a little bit about the history and also about promises made and promises broken. My name is Jack Burrows. I bought a home on Sierra Boulevard, west of Mosaic Law in 2010. I found it to be a very nice, quiet residential neighborhood where everyone was respectful of each other. In 2015, this changed significantly. Mosaic Law started holding events, some were outside events, where they played very loud amplified music accompanied with what sounded like fireworks and strobe lighting. I and another neighbor walked down to the rabbi's home to complain. The rabbi's wife answered the door and told us the rabbi has nothing to do with events. On Monday, I contacted the office of Mosaic Law and was told Miss Grievous was responsible for events. After several meetings and telephone conversations with Miss Grievous, David Long, the board chairman, the rabbi, and several others, she promised the neighborhood committee Mosaic Law would be more understanding of the neighbor's needs. The attachment 3B was endorsed. Improvements were made, but in 2017, Mosaic Law events became problematic. 2018 and 19, they became unbearable. In September 2019, one such event resulted in fighting, breaking out in the streets of our neighborhood, requiring the county to send more than 10 police cars, a paddy wagon, a fire truck, an ambulance, and dispatch helicopters. Repeatedly on weekends, we had many cars parked in our neighborhood streets, and many people, including young women dressed only in thongs and scantily clad tops, walking to Mosaic Law, and after drinking at Mosaic Law for 4 to 6 hours, they would return to their cars at 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning, very loudly trashing our streets and yards.
efforts were made to talk with the new manager of Mosaic Law, and he told the neighbor he could do whatever he wanted to make money from Mosaic Law. The neighbors need meaningful conditions to be printed out from Mosaic Law. We have tried repeatedly in the past to work with Mosaic Law to no avail, and now must rely upon you, the planning and licensing departments, and the board of supervisors to protect our investments in what was such a nice residential neighborhood. We really, really want the number of events to be limited, particularly since they have so many congregational events, such as weddings or mitzvahs and so forth and so on. This would be like a rotating nightclub. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Clerk, do we have any additional callers?
Yes, we do. We still have 2 callers left in queue. Please send the next caller.
Hi, caller, you have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Jane Christopherson, and I live on Sierra Boulevard, west of Mosaic Law Synagogue and Shalom School. I'm here today to support inclusion in any amendment to Mosaic Law's use permit. The findings and language paragraph sent last Friday to County Planning and forwarded to CPAC. Inclusion of the finding paragraph is essential to ensure the clear understanding by the permit holder of its obligations to the neighborhood and the county by virtue of its RD20 zoning in a residential neighborhood. It also protects the neighborhood in any dispute. Inclusion of the language paragraph is essential to provide the neighborhood and the county recourse to recover costs of enforcement of the conditions and to provide the right of revocation of the use permit in the event of violation of the conditions. Mosaic Law and Shalom School are currently permitted only church and school events. Mosaic Law claims it always intended that the social hall approved in 2005 would be used for non-congregational fundraising activities. If true, why did it justify the concurrent 2005 proposal to reduce the number of parking spaces by stating that, quote, the 2 principal uses, church and school, are never in operation at the same time, end quote? Why didn't it specifically ask for non-congregational events? Mosaic Law relied on its business license as the most expedient way to start fundraising, regardless of what its use permit allowed. A 2016 error by county planning aided this behavior by removing from the business license the condition that the site had to be used only for church activities. To the point, Mosaic Law ignored the welfare of the neighborhood in its pursuit of additional funding. Adding the proposed finding and language will help protect the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please call the final caller.
Can you please send the next caller?
Okay, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, is it wait for me to talk? Are you hearing me? This is Judith Scott. I have lived on Sierra Boulevard close to Fulton Avenue since 1971. And I don't see that whether I'm showing up or not. Lots of changes since then. Okay, maybe I'll say it again. My name is Judith Scott. I've lived on Sierra Boulevard close to Fulton Avenue since 1971. Lots of changes since then. It is significant to understand that there are no cross streets out of the neighborhood between Howe and Fulton, making Sierra Boulevard essentially a very long one-block single and multi-family residential neighborhood with the 2 large properties of Mosaic Law and the Unitarian Church, both surrounded closely by residents. There is also limited parking and only intermittent sidewalks. We are very affected well beyond the 500 feet of activity, traffic, and noise from Howe to Fulton. Written conditions included in use permit approvals, especially for the Unitarian Church, have been crucial and successful for maintaining the quality of residential life on Sierra Boulevard. The successful example of working with the Unitarian Church which had major changes, is shown in the updated 22621 revised neighborhood proposed conditions and rationale for this project, and serves as a good model. Written conditions do not necessarily mean there will be no problems, but well thought out ones in place add to the ease of solving problems as they arrive. The proposed conditions were drawn not only from past lessons learned, but also from recently presented conditions and statements of the intention of Mosaic law. COVID did provide us with some relief from this, but it also meant we weren't meeting on an ongoing basis. So there needed to be an update in our proposals as we had recently received some new things from Mosaic law. I look forward to being able to work successfully with Mosaic law as we did with the Unitarian Church. And that's it.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
And that concludes your verbal public comment for item number 2.
All right. Madam Clerk.
Excuse me, this is Brian Holloway. The chair of the neighborhood committee, Judy Goldbar, is also on the phone and wishing to speak. And I gave the clerk her number.
Oh, I thought you were giving me that so I can see if she was in the public comment line. She was not in the public comment line. So is she going to call into the public comment line? I was under the impression that's where she was calling into.
I thought so as well, but she is listening in. So.
Okay, well, if she wants to call into the public comment line right now so we can try to get her in to make her comments.
That would be great. Can you
okay.
Can you give her the number? Because I gave her the 7,000 number, and I thought that was the call-in line.
No. So the phone number that she needs to call is 916-875-2500. And then she'll follow the prompts to be placed in queue. So she'll select item number 2.
Okay, I'll text her that right now.
Okay, and while we're waiting, I'd like to open up to questions from the CPAC members. If anyone would like to go first, please just holler.
This is Steve Turner.
Go ahead, Councilmember Turner.
Yeah, I think the neighbors' comments about the change in use and about what's been left over in their neighborhoods and such is really relevant here. And I am not inclined to be pushing towards approving a use change.
Thank you, council member. Is another member of the council wishing to make a comment or ask a question of the presenters?
This is
ahead,
Councilmember Davis. I would like to hear from the neighborhood association because my understanding is they had a number of specific conditions and are working with the applicant, and I'd like to hear more about that.
So I correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Holloway, but I'm assuming that there is 2 different groups. There's a neighborhood association or a group of neighborhood residents that you and the applicants have been working with, and it seems as though there was this second group which all just called in on public comment. Is that accurate to state?
Actually, what we've been doing is that we've been working with a group of neighbors that volunteered to work with us, which is pretty much the same folks that you've heard from tonight. We have seen their list of conditions, and we are basically in agreement with most of those that they put forward. Those were the basic subjects that we've been working on. One thing that there was some spillover in their conditions in that some of the conditions are conditions of the non-congregational activities, which is the subject that's before you tonight. But some of the conditions spilled over into the Mosaic Law Synagogue and the operations of the religious facility, and that is not allowed to occur obviously under the First Amendment. So what we needed to do is we need the conditions to focus on not the synagogue, but on the event center, which is what the use permit is about. Now, I can tell you that one of the conditions talked about the number of events, and no more than 400 at a time, no more than 400 attendees at a time, and no more than 70 in a year. The neighborhood put forward in their conditions no more than one per month. We never discussed that, nor did we agree to that. There are conditions about the time that the events would end in the evening. One time for Friday, Saturday, a different time for Sunday, and that has been a part of discussion, but we have not agreed, neither the committee nor Mosaic have agreed to that, and we hope to come to an agreement before we, after we leave the CPAC and before we get to Planning Commission. So that's the one matter that's still to be negotiated.
So there is an interest. Oh, go ahead, please.
The only other thing I was going to mention is that they were requesting 2 parking lot attendants at every entrance, every parking lot entrance. There's a west lot, an east lot, and then the Unitarian church lot. And we are in agreement with 2 at the west lot and 2 at the Unitarian lot, but we believe that only 1 is needed at the easterly lot, because that is the first lot that would be the overflow lot. As staff recommended or proposed to you, the attendees would arrive at the west lot. When that got to be full, they would be advised to move down both by signage and by the parking monitors to the easterly lot. When that lot filled up, then the monitors would send any additional cars to the Unitarian lot. So really the only, on the list of conditions here, outside of those that try and restrict the synagogue, we really only have one that needs to be further debated, and that is the time at which the events would end. And I'm hoping that Judy Gobar, who is the chair of the group that we've been negotiating with, can be on the phone and explain some of that to you.
Yes, this is Darrell with the clerk of the board. Chairperson, I was just going to say we have her on the line. Are you ready for her to be transferred in?
Yes, please.
Okay, please transfer Ms. Goldbar into the meeting, please.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Hi, my name is Judy Goldbar, and I live in the condominiums right next door to Shalom School on Sierra Boulevard on the west side, right across from the school and the opening to the special event center. All of the things that you have learned this evening from our committee have been designed to build for you the view that initially everything was wonderful. The school was a great addition. We enjoyed it. But as the number and type of events ramped up and became more commercial in their purpose, it became a very uncomfortable and unwanted type of situation in our neighborhood. What we would like to see from the Planning Commission is that first of all, we'd like you to understand that we are working with Shalom School, and I think we are working very well in communicating our concerns and in their responding to those concerns. I think we've got a nice path set up in that way. However, the conditions do need to be written, and they need to be able to be upheld, because in the past, the written word and a handshake hasn't been successful in creating a convenient and happy place for our neighbors. So while we don't mind, well, we do mind, but it's here already, that the Special Events Center has been built and is in use. We all agree that it should be limited to perhaps less, and I think less than 70 events a year, non-congregational, and all parking on the Mosaic Law territory on their footprint, and that they, as mentioned by my other committee members, that there be door guards and security guards when necessary, especially when alcohol is served, because I don't think that that was mentioned, that they have a very successful alcohol license that provides a great deal of income for them. And we want to make it work for all of us. They're here now, and for the most part, we do enjoy them, the Shalom School and the Mosaic Law Synagogue. It just seems to be the need for the commercial events or the non-congregational events to be fitted into the appropriate category for a RD20 neighborhood. That's my story.
Thank you, ma'am.
Chairperson, this is Darrell, the clerk of the board. We have an additional 2 verbal public comments. Is it okay to send those callers through?
Yes, please.
Okay, please send the next caller.
Go ahead and with your comments.
Hi, my name is Jay Christopherson. I spoke before, but I want to bring attention to our late submission of our revised conditions. And that's because on February 11th, it was posted that Mosaic Law's amendment had been complete. And because we didn't have an opportunity, we asked to have the meeting postponed, but we were denied that request. So on Friday, we faxed over, or scanned over, I should say, to Jessie Shen, and she forwarded to CPAC our amended conditions. And when we're talking about limited event hours, we are talking about precisely what Unitarian Church already in our neighborhood has as their conditions, so we think they're very reasonable, which is everything should conclude no later than 11 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays, and no later than 10 p.m. on Sunday through Thursday, which are work days, excluding cleanup, which is another 30 minutes. And during these events, there shall be always on-site personnel or designated congressional members to monitor events. All outdoor events shall conform minimally to the 10 p.m. noise curfew required by county ordinance, which is again on the Unitarian Church conditions. And this one is proposed by Mosaic Law itself. No outdoor events are to be allowed to use amplified music. We want these in written conditions. Also, that no events with inside amplified music shall provide door monitors at the front entrance to ensure that the doors remain closed during the event, except when guests arrive and depart. Then we also wanted to limit event attendance, and that they should be limited to 400 persons in total, which is what Mosaic Law actually proposes, and that all advertising, event contracts, parking, and attendance shall direct attendees to park only on Mosaic Law grounds or, when permitted, the Universalist Church grounds, not on Sierra Boulevard or adjacent side streets or the office complex at 650 Howe Avenue, which is a private enterprise, and that guests should behave respectfully and quietly while going quickly to and from their parked cars. The last condition was to require door guards and private security personnel for any event shall require one guard for each 100 attendees. And these conditions actually come from the city of Sacramento that they use for their convention site, so they seem very appropriate. Any event on Mosaic Law grounds shall require one security guard for each 75 attendees, and if alcohol is served, the number of security guards will be increased. For example, 1/50 instead of 1/75 if alcohol is served. And that 2 parking lot attendants would be present at each parking lot entrance. And then we had additionally the findings and the language that I spoke to before. We also request that there be only 2 events per month, not one, but 2 events per month. That's enough additional traffic in our neighborhood, in addition to the Siloam School parking daily and the Mosaic Law congregation events that go on. And 70 is way too much per year. Thank you. So that's the basics. The CPAC should have this. We apologize again for the late submission. We just didn't have enough time. And if you take the time, the committee, to review what we've sent in, I think you will find everything there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please send the next caller.
If I can just make a brief comment before, I do want to ask if we have people who are calling in who have already made public comment. Please limit your comment to a few short remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson Suarez. Please send the next caller.
Clarify certain things. Mr. Holloway misrepresented our conditions. We have not agreed on many conditions. And one of the misrepresentations was that we were asking for 1 a month. That is not true. We were asking for 2 a month, and we had very good reasons for making it 2 a month.
Okay, thank you, sir. I did ask if we had people who are making additional public comments that they keep it to brief remarks.
Add more than 2 a month, it would just be overwhelming to the neighborhood. We really did submit very meaningful. Actually, Ms. Christopherson did an excellent job.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. All right.
Chairperson Suarez, that concludes your verbal public comment. Would you like to close that queue for item number 2?
Yes, please. And it seems as though the verbal comment also, in one case, represented one of the written comments as well.
Yes.
To go into the record.
Get a chance to rebut.
Yes, I'm going to give you a few minutes to rebut. I just wanted to go finish through describing the written comments. In addition to the written comment, which described the updated conditions as we just heard, there was an additional email chain submitted of correspondence between the parties which called in on the public comment line and with the clerk of the board regarding complaints about various different events over the years. All right. So, Mr. Holloway, if you would like a few minutes briefly to raise some of the concerns that were brought up by public comment.
Yeah, I do want to make one correction. Jack was correct. I did misspeak in the list of conditions that was sent over to our planner, and you have before you. It does say 2 events per month, not 1. So I misspoke on that. My apologies for that. So what I was talking about is this list of conditions that was sent over, that we have basically agreed to many of these. You will see in those conditions there's this one thing that needs to be clarified, is that when the conditions read any event on the grounds, any event at the facility, that is where it is spilling over into the synagogue, which then becomes a violation of First Amendment. So these conditions really need to focus on non-congregational activities at the event center, so that we don't get this spillover into the synagogue or the Shalom School or anything like that. But basically, as you look at this set of conditions, we agree to most of those, as long as, except for the one issue that we're still debating and we still want to have a conversation with our neighbors about, is the ending time of the events, Friday, Saturday, and any of the other week. The thing that's important to remember here is the event center has a capacity of over 800 people. And we acknowledge that previous events got out of hand. There were raves, there were high school graduations, there were large business meetings that did approach that 800 person level. And by restricting this particular project now to just 400 as a maximum number of people, those kinds of problematic events will not happen. 400 allows us to basically park on site, and if there is any additional overflow, then it would go to the Unitarian Church down the street with shuttle and with directions by our parking monitors. So what we've done is we've made basically a commitment of cutting our event capacity in half and limiting them to no more than 70 per year, when in fact previously there was well more than 70 a year. So we feel that we've worked in good faith with the neighbors. We've made substantial compromises here, and there's really only 2 points, one of substance, which is the hours that things would end. The other one would be how many monitors would be in the parking lot at any particular time. So we think that this is a project now with these compromises that would be conditions of approval, that would be enforceable, is a good project that will fit in well with the neighborhood. And we will look forward to your deliberations and any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Holloway. Are there any comments or questions from other CPAC members?
I have a question, Councilmember Davis. I misunderstood something you said earlier. I thought you were going from 10 events to 70, but you just said that you've had well over 70 in the past. So could you please clarify?
Yes. In the past, prior to us having a conditional use permit, we had more than 70 events in a year. When we found out that we needed a use permit, the county gave us a temporary use permit that limited us just to 10 events until such time as the Planning Commission made a decision about the use permit that's before you tonight. So that's where the difference between 10 and 70 was. 70 is what we're agreeing to now. We previously had more than that, but the temporary use permit that we were given in 2000 limited us to just 10 events until a decision was made on the project. Does that make sense?
Yes, thanks for the clarification.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Davis. Any other comments or questions from council?
Yes, this is Damian Schiff. I have 2 quick questions. One is, if the conditional use permit is denied and the temporary use permit expires, what then would the congregation be allowed legally to use the site for?
They would be able to use the site for congregational events. So there could be religious events that would occur there, or religious related events that would occur there. What the way this will work is that if there will not be a large congregational event and a large non-congregational event at the same time. There may be small services, there might be a small gathering at the synagogue on the same property, but there would not be a large event at the same time that there would be a non-congregational event that would not exceed 400 attendees.
Thank you. I guess what I was also getting at is a lot of the commenters here who've lived here for some time, I'm trying to figure out what they could have reasonably expected the property to be used for, and as opposed to what is a change from the baseline. And so, although it sounds like there was quite a lot of activity at one point, am I correct that isn't actually legally part of the baseline, that there isn't really a definitive entitlement to have 70 plus events non-congregational per year? Is that right?
Hi, membership. This is Jessie from the planning department. I can answer your question. So the project site is currently under a use permit for the Mosaic Law congregation as well as the school. Those two uses that have a use permit allowed can have events related to those uses. So for example, religious events, and for the school, basketball games, plays, anything of that sort. So they are allowed to have events that are related to the primary uses that have obtained a use permit on site at the project site. What the applicant is requesting now is to allow for non-congregational events to occur on site. So events that are not related to the school or the congregation, potentially fundraisers for other organizations, things of that sort. They're not permitted to have non-congregational events on the site right now, and they're not legal until they obtain a use permit amendment to allow for those, or they can go the route of the temporary use permit that had previously been granted. But the temporary use permit only limits them to 10 of these types of events per year, and they're asking for 70.
Thank you. Last question is just with respect to any conditions on permits, what is the method by which someone could bring to the attention of the county or the proper enforcement authority evidence that the conditions are not being adhered to?
That is a very great question, membership. So I do want to say that on our use permits, we do have text that states the use will not be conducted to constitute either a public or private nuisance. Violation of any of the foregoing conditions will constitute grounds for revocation of the permit. So we do have that text in the body of our use permit. And the idea is that if you don't follow the conditions, your use permit will be revocated. Typically, conditions are enforced. This one is unique because there is no construction. It is operational. So conditions are typically imposed by the department that places it on the project. And in this case, it would be planning, but enforcement would likely come from county code enforcement, that department.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Schiff. Any additional comments or questions from the board?
Yes, this is Councilmember Tom Roten. It sounds a little like this is the cart before the horse situation. It seems as though that this event center, which was probably built with the intention of working with the congregation and the school, was also somewhat intended to be used as a little bit of a moneymaker on the side to have these outside events. While I understand that from a business perspective, it seems that not having the use permit to do such a thing was probably not in the best interest of the community and their neighbors. And I think as it is standing, they have that temporary use agreement to provide some outside events up to whatever it is, 10 a year or whatever else, and that the extension that they're requesting up to 70 doesn't seem to be well received by their community because either bad apples or whatever else. And at least from my perspective, it sounds a little like their neighborhood doesn't really want an event center. They are happy with the school and they're happy with the congregation. And the few events that they're able to have is okay as long as they're being well managed. And so I'm at this point, I'm not real excited about moving ahead with their proposal and their new use agreement because it doesn't sound like they're meeting the needs of their community.
All right, thank you.
This is Barry Weiner. This is Barry Weiner. I'm one of the applicants, and I want to address what was just said. We've worked, first of all, the previous administration, the previous presidents of the congregation really let the event center manager run it the way he wanted, and there was no oversight. When we finally took over to address these issues with the neighbors, we were appalled. This was never supposed to get out of hand. Yes, there were raves, and that was downright disgusting. Okay. So once we took over, I ended up having a number of people, volunteers. We started hiring more security guards that we paid for ourselves and not the lessees. We started closing the door, which helped. We have sound monitors outside. We made sure the decibel level was below what the county ordinance is. Since mid-2019, we've controlled the parking. We found that a few of the events we had that were above 400 were unmanageable, and we decided that 400 was a manageable number. Because what you have to do is the cars are approximately 200 cars for a 400 person event, and that can be parked on our property easily. We patrolled the outside neighborhood. I personally have been involved with the parking enforcement, the security, and the running and management as much as possible as a volunteer. I've personally have called the sheriffs 3 times to have them come out to Sierra Boulevard, Blackmer, to ticket, because that's all they'll do. They do not tow, but they did ticket because I do have a sheriff liaison who I can call, and it's amazing how fast they'll come out. There's a group of us that have taken pride, along with the executive committee and the board of Mosaic Law Congregation. We found what happened previously to be horrible. And the event center does provide for some of our operating expenses. We're a 10-acre parcel with 4 large buildings actually, and the maintenance is important. And the event center provides us with an income so that we can survive. Due to COVID, everything is down like everybody else. And when you depend on donations, it doesn't always work out the best. But I'm not, okay, so moving forward, the conditions that the neighbors had brought forth, most of them we decided to go ahead and agree with, because we need to get along with the neighbors, and that's really important. And we're still working through some of the points, but I can assure you there's been absolute minimal impact into the neighborhood since we took over mid-2019. And all those horrible things that those people were saying happened. They did happen, but they happened in the past under an administration that really didn't care, and there was no oversight. That has changed. And to be honest with you, if it ever reverted back to that, or there was a huge impact into the neighborhood, I would even petition to have the CUP removed. Sorry, I was a little emotional with that.
Thank you, Mr. Weiner.
Weiner, thank you.
Weiner, I apologize.
Colin, if I could just kind of tie on that.
Absolutely.
I think that I understand your points, Barry. I do. I just, the purpose of this committee and the purpose of the county oversight on this is so that when changes do happen, say you and Judy are no longer a member of this congregation, and or of this business and somebody else takes it over. If that conditional use permit is still in place and they choose to operate it like the previous, right? There's that oversight. So, listening to the community and their concerns and making these conditions be a part of it, I think are probably working in your advantage and in the future of your business's advantage moving forward. So if it's, I understand there's the negotiation process of it, but I think what they're trying to tell you is they're welcome to have you there, and you're welcome to continue to do this to make money, but we want you to put some parameters on it so that while you have your word, the county is also there to back it up for the future.
No, I agree with you 100%. My bigger point to this is that Jack and Jane, by the way, are married, and they've been truly not negotiating in good faith, which is our problem, not yours. But
to be fair, Mr. Weiner, and I think to Councilmember Tom's point, that's also the benefit of CPAC to you as the property owner is not incumbent upon you to negotiate with any individual property owner. It's up to you to negotiate with the county and present your case to the CPAC and the Board of Supervisors so that there are no individual bad actors who can have a hand on this. And so if I could just, because I know we're starting to go round and around, but if I could just make a brief comment, and it's my prerogative as chair. It does seem as though the two parties are probably much closer together in alignment than I think either of them is probably willing to recognize. The fact that we have moved so far down the road on some of the items that were sent over to us by several of the neighbors, I think bodes well. However, I will say, if the two items where there is disagreement is the number of events, or I'm sorry, because I believe the number of events is accurate, but if one of the major sticking points is the hours of events, that's a pretty wide gulf to get. However, in the interest of moving the conversation along, and because if I can ask the board quickly, when does the conditional use permit or the temporary use permit expire?
Hi, this is Jessie from planning. The temporary use permit has already expired. It expired in April of 2020.
Okay, so they're still operating under that same use permit?
They are not allowed to have any events anymore because a temporary use permit only allows 10 non-congregational events per calendar year.
Right.
And the duration of it was from September 2019 to April 2020. They had maxed out on the number of events.
Yeah. And this is Brian Holloway. We've had no events since COVID happened as well, which is good.
Right.
What I would like to, if I might, what I'd like to do is suggest, because we're really just on these deal points that are in these written conditions that were sent over to you and to us, really there's two that we're not in agreement on yet. What I would like to do is request a continuance to the next meeting so that we can sit down with our neighbors again, see if we can hammer out these last two.
You stole the words right out of my mouth, Mr. Holloway.
I thought maybe you might be headed that direction.
Yeah, I was going to say, based on the tenor of the conversation, the comments of my fellow board members, and the fact that I don't anticipate we'll be having any large gatherings for at least the next several months due to COVID anyway, it would be my suggestion that a motion is made at this moment to hold the item over for an additional month, rather than, say, have a board member take a vote on the project up or down as presented to us in the conditions, because I think that would be in the interest of everyone to see if we can't resolve it. So in the interest of taking my own prerogative, I would like to make a motion at this time to hold the item over for a future meeting for the April, I guess technically it would be, well, actually, clerk of the board, if I could ask, technically this counts as our February meeting, correct?
I believe so. So your next meeting would be March 25th.
Okay, I would make then a motion to hold this item open and over until the March meeting of the Arden Arcade CPAC. Is there a second?
This is Councilmember Roten. I'll second.
All right, the motion having been made and seconded, would the clerk please call the roll?
Yes. Member Davis?
Yes.
Member Turner?
Yes.
Member Schiff?
Yes.
Member Roden?
Yes.
And Member Suarez?
Yes.
And your motion carries to continue this matter to March 25th.
Thank you very
CPAC
much.
members. Thank you.
And thank you for everyone for calling in and participating. We appreciate it. At this time, I would like to go to the clerk and see if there's an update from Sacramento County.
This is Matt here, senior planner. No, there isn't any updates this month.
All right. And then at this point, we'll go to council member comments. Does any council member have an additional comment to go on the record?
I do. This is Councilmember Davis, and I regret to inform you that because of conflicting obligations, I am going to be leaving the council. I will miss you all dearly. I have very much enjoyed getting to know everyone.
No, I'm trying to get out of this stupid piece of shit.
Oh dear.
Uh-oh.
Mr. Weiner, I
Body is not muted.
Still broadcasting.
Brenda, you have been wonderful. Thank you for your leadership.
I was going to say, and Brenda, we ought to go out on a high note.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. But yes, I have enjoyed it, and I will miss all of you. And I'm glad that I have served for all these years. And I thanked Supervisor Peters for the opportunity, and I thank you all for allowing me to be your chair for so many years.
Great job.
I do.
Thank you.
Yeah, and on behalf of the person who has inherited that virtual gavel, and I realize I have quite big shoes to fill. So thank you for your service to the community. It's appreciated, and definitely one I'm trying to live up to.
Thank you so much. That's very kind.
Are there any other comments from the board? Hearing none. Clerk, do we have any public comments on open items?
No, we do not have any off-agenda public comment at this time.
Well, then I think it's only fitting. Miss Member, would you like to make the motion to close it?
Yes. I move that we adjourn the meeting now.
And I second. All right. Motion and second having been made. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Thank you very much, everybody. It's much appreciated. And thank you, Brenda, again.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
See you around the neighborhood.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. You guys have a nice evening.